Hey, I'm Jennifer. I'm 34 and have been married to Jake for about a year now. Most days, you'll find me glued to my laptop, teaching students from all over. Life was going smoothly, until it wasn't. Jake and I live in this beautiful house that my parents left me. It's big, cozy, and had been just ours, until recently. Jake's parents, Martha and Bob, lived down the road, and at first, their visits were kind of nice. But then nice turned into a complete nightmare. Martha, armed with her lifetime experience as a housewife, started criticizing everything: my cooking, my housekeeping, you name it. Her standards were sky high. "Jennifer, darling, this pasta is a bit bland, don't you think?" she'd say, scrunching her face like she'd just sucked on a lemon. "And the house. A woman's touch means a spotless home," she preached. "You do want to keep Jake happy, don't you?" I swallowed so many retorts. "Martha, I work. I can't just magically make dust disappear between teaching classes." I tried explaining once, hoping for a shred of empathy, but she just waved her hand dismissively. "Nonsense. It's about priorities. Your job is to take care of the home. And Jake, of course." One day, she even inspected Jake's laundry in front of me. "You're letting him wear this. The colors have faded. You're not using the right detergent." My fists clenched so tightly I could have turned coal into diamonds. But I swallowed my anger, telling myself, "They're not staying with us, it's just a visit." But those visits stretched my patience razor thin. Then one sunny afternoon, I was setting up for my next online class when I heard a truck pull up outside. Peeking through the window, my jaw nearly hit the floor. Jake was helping his parents unload boxes and furniture from a huge moving truck. My heart sank. This wasn't happening. Martha, ever the matriarch, was directing everything like she owned the place. Bob stood there, grinning as if he had just won the lottery. Jake caught my eye and shrugged apologetically. Furious, I stormed out. "Jake, what on earth is going on?" "Oh, hey babe. Surprise. Mom and Dad are moving in with us. Isn't that great?" He smiled, completely oblivious to my rising panic and rage. "Great? When were you planning on asking me, your wife, about this life-altering decision?" I practically spat out each word. "Babe, calm down. It's just for a little while. They're having financial trouble, and this way, they can rent out their place for extra cash. It's a win-win," Jake said, trying to put an arm around me, but I pulled away. Martha chose that moment to waltz over, exuding authority in her pastel cardigan and pearls. "Jennifer, darling, it's so sensible, don't you think? We're all family here, and you've got so much space in this lovely house of yours. It was meant to be shared." Shared? This house was my sanctuary, left to me by my parents who were no longer with us. It wasn't some communal living space. My voice betrayed my attempt to stay calm. "Martha, with all due respect, this is my house. Don't you think this is something that should have been discussed?" "Oh, sweetheart, don't be like that. Family helps family. We'll make such lovely memories together." Martha patted herself on the back while Bob chimed in. "Yeah, Jennifer, it's about time we all got closer, don't you think?" Closer. I didn't even know what to say. The arrogance, the entitlement, it was overwhelming. Jake stood there, torn between me and his parents like a deer caught in headlights. "Come on, Jenny, it'll be fine. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is ours, right?" Wrong. So very wrong. But as much as I wanted to throw them out, I couldn't. Maybe it was shock, or maybe it was that nagging voice reminding me how much family meant to Jake. So I did what I'd become an expert at. I swallowed my fury, plastered on a fake smile, and welcomed them into my home. And as the days turned into weeks, I realized this temporary arrangement was anything but. Martha and Bob settled in like they owned the place, turning my life into a never-ending critique session. My cooking? Never good enough. My cleaning? Always supper. Jake, meanwhile, seemed blissfully ignorant, either at work or playing the part of the oblivious husband all too well. What was supposed to be a short-term situation now felt like a life sentence. Each day became a marathon, starting the moment I opened my eyes and ending only when I collapsed into bed. I was constantly juggling my work and the unrelenting demands of my new housemates. One morning, as I prepared for a crucial tutoring session, Martha barged into my makeshift office, already frowning. "Jennifer, this place is a pigsty. When was the last time you dusted? And those cups from yesterday are still in the sink." I clenched my jaw, my fingers hovering above the keyboard. "Martha, I've got back-to-back sessions today. I'll get to it when I can," she huffed, crossing her arms. In my day, we kept a clean house and worked. It's all about managing your time better. Managing my time better. I wanted to scream, but instead bit back the sharp retort and focus on my screen, even though my vision was clouded by a red haze of frustration. Bob wasn't any easier. He had an uncanny knack for needing something the moment I was in the middle of explaining complex concepts to my students. Jennifer, where's lunch? I'm starving, he bellowed from the living room, completely ignoring the do not disturb sign on my door. It's in the fridge, Bob. Just warm it up, I replied, my voice strained with forced politeness. What do I look like, a chef? Can't you take a break and fix something? He shot back, his voice booming through the thin walls. Jake, bless his heart, tried to play the peacemaker, but his attempts only made things worse. Jenny, can't you just drop it for today? Let's have a quiet dinner, yeah, he'd say, trying to smooth over the latest flare-up. Drop it. As if I was the one stirring up drama over lunch and dust bunnies. The breaking point came one evening when I was trying to wrap up my last session of the day. Martha decided it was the perfect time to lecture me, again, on the importance of a tidy home. You know, Jennifer, a cluttered house is a sign of a cluttered mind. Maybe if you tidied up more, you'd be less stressed. Less stressed. I'd almost laughed. Instead, I stood up and faced her square on. Martha, I'm working. This cluttered office is paying our bills right now. And if you're so worried about the cleaning, maybe you could help out. Her face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. I am a guest in this house, Jennifer. It's not my job to clean. Guest. The word echoed in my head, mocking me. Some guests. They were turning my life and home upside down, and I was supposed to be grateful. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the absurdity of it all hit me. Here I was busting my hump to provide, to teach, and to keep the peace in my own home, only to be criticized at every turn. Jake's soft snoring next to me was the only sound in the dark room. I turned to look at him, wondering how we ended up here. How did we go from being newlyweds, excited about our future, to roommates who barely spoke because his parents were driving a wedge between us? 3 months into what felt like the world's longest invasion of privacy, Jake came home early one day. He looked like he'd just lost a fight with a bear. Jenny. I got fired, Jake blurted out, not even waiting to sit down. His parents were out, probably terrorizing someone else with their endless critiques, and he made me swear not to tell them. Great, I thought, just what I needed. Now everything was on me. My online tutoring gigs, which had once been a way to stay busy and bring in some extra cash, suddenly became our lifeline. I doubled down on work, stretching my days as thin as possible. Before long, I wasn't just tutoring. I was running my own online school. A small part of me buzzed with pride, but I kept it to myself. No point in adding fuel to the already blazing inferno that was our household dynamics. Money was tight, tighter than a jar sealed for a century. Every penny had to scream for mercy before it was spent. It got so bad that I had to have the talk with Martha and Bob. Look, I started cautiously. I know this is awkward, but I need help with the bills. Maybe you could cover half the rent. The way they reacted, you'd think I had asked them to fly to the moon. What do you mean? Jake's got it covered. He makes plenty, Bob scoffed, waving off my request like it was a bad smell. Yeah, about that, I began, but Jake's pleading look stopped me. He still wasn't ready for them to know. Later, he pulled me aside, whispering, just a little longer, Jenny. I'll find something soon. I promise. Promises. Meanwhile, I was juggling everything, teaching, cleaning, cooking, playing referee between the in-laws, all while trying to keep a smile plastered on my face. Martha and Bob, of course, acted like they were competing in the Olympics of complaining. They barged into my office at the worst times, demanding attention as if I were hosting afternoon tea instead of running a business. Jennifer, this is unacceptable. You're always locked away in here. When are you going to make time for us? Martha huffed one day, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed while I was in the middle of explaining algebra to a 15-year-old. Martha, I'm working. Can this wait? I hissed, trying to keep my voice down. No, it can't. We're family, and you're neglecting us, she shot back, completely missing the irony. Bob wasn't any better. When's dinner? We're starving here, and you're just sitting around, he grumbled on another occasion, ignoring the stack of papers and textbooks around me. Sitting around? My patience frayed like an old rope. Really, Bob? I'm teaching, and dinner is when you make it, I snapped. Jake was always apologetic. Whispering, thanks for holding us together, Jenny. It'll get better. But better felt like a distant land, one we weren't getting any closer to. As the days turned into weeks, the weight of it all grew heavier. I couldn't help but wonder how much longer I could keep this up. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, Martha whipped out a glossy travel brochure, her eyes gleaming. "Look at this, dear," she said, sliding the booklet across the table. "We're thinking of a little getaway, a vacation. What do you think? A scarf or a shell as a souvenir?" Before I could even process the absurdity of her question, she dropped another bomb. "And darling, if you could spare $2,000 for us, that would be just peachy. Just for some pocket money, you know." I stared at her, dumbfounded. My fork clattered to the plate, my appetite gone. "Spare $2,000? I echoed, incredulous. "For a vacation?" Bob nodded as if it were the most reasonable request in the world. "Yeah, you know, for the little extras. Wouldn't want to miss out on the fun stuff." The room spun. This was beyond outrageous. It was as if they were living in a fantasy where money grew on trees, and I was their personal gardener. I couldn't hold back any longer. "How long do you plan to live at my expense?" I demanded, my voice rising. "You don't pay for anything, not rent, not groceries, and now you want me to fund your holidays too." Martha and Bob exchanged glances, clearly not expecting the outburst. "Well, we thought Jake was taking care of all that," Bob said, trying to sound innocent. I turned to Jake, my eyes blazing. "And what about you? Do you think this is okay?" Jake squirmed in his seat, mumbling something inaudible. "Not only that," I continued, steamrolling ahead, "you barge into my office, interrupt my work, and have zero respect for my personal space. I've had it." There was a tense silence. Then Jake, his face a mask of frustration, finally spoke up. "Why are you talking to my parents like that? They're just trying to enjoy life." "Enjoy life? On my hard-earned money?" I shot back, disbelief lacing my words. That's when Martha, ever the actress, began her performance. Tears welled up as she wailed, "After all we've done for you. We even told Jake he shouldn't divorce you despite everything." The room froze. "Divorce?" The word sliced through the tension like a knife. I turned to Jake, my heart in my throat. "Is that true?" Jake's face went from red to white, guilt flashing in his eyes before he averted his gaze. Martha, seizing the moment, clutched her chest dramatically, gasping, "My pills? Upstairs, please." Despite everything, concern washed over me. I stood up abruptly, the need to ensure she was okay momentarily overshadowing my anger. "Fine," I said, tight-lipped. "I'll get your medicine." I left the dining room in a daze, my mind racing. The accusations, the deceit, and now this talk of divorce. My world was unraveling, thread by thread, and I was left to pick up the pieces. I had barely reached the top of the stairs when it hit me. I didn't even know which medicine Martha was talking about. Turning back, the last thing I expected was to overhear the truth that would shatter everything. Jake's voice, usually so warm and familiar, was barely a whisper, yet each word landed like a hammer. "Mom, you nearly blew it tonight. We need her to sell the house first. Talking about divorce now will just spook her." My heart stopped. Divorce? Sell my house. The pieces fell into place, forming a mosaic of betrayal. Martha's voice was quick and sharp. I know, but keeping this charade up is exhausting. She's not as clueless as you think." Jake was insistent, almost desperate. "Just stick to the plan. Make things hard for her, unbearable even. She'll cave and sell the house to get away from you. Then we can do whatever. But not before. If she divorces me now, I get nothing from the sale." The coldness in his voice, the manipulation, it was all laid bare. My knees felt weak, my heart shattered. This was their plan, my husband and his parents, plotting against me in my own home. "We'll be set once this is done," Jake continued, completely unaware of my silent presence. "Sell the old place too, and we can finally get something better. Just lay off the big purchases for now. Don't draw attention." I stood frozen, a statue of disbelief and hurt. They were supposed to be my family. How could they do this? Back at the dining room door, I paused, collecting myself. The mask of ignorance was now my best defense. I found Martha clutching her chest, the perfect picture of distress. "Oh dear, I forgot to ask which medicine you needed," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside. Martha, caught mid-act, quickly shifted gears. "Oh, it's all right, dear. I think I just need a moment. The excitement of the evening, you know." Jake glanced at me, a flicker of something crossing his face. Guilt? Fear? I couldn't tell. Everything okay, Jenny? He asked. I met his gaze, a hollow laugh echoing inside me. Fine. Just tired, I guess. It's been a long day. As we finished dinner in silence, my mind raced. They didn't know I knew, and I intended to keep it that way. For now, I would play the part, bide my time, plan my next move carefully. They wanted a game. They'd get one, on my terms. The next morning, I didn't waste a second. I called off my classes, a mix of nerves and determination fueling me. Today wasn't about teaching, it was about reclaiming my life. My first stop was the lawyer's office. I laid everything out, the deception, the manipulation, and their plans against me. He was reassuring, clear that the law protected my inheritance. The house was mine, divorce or not. With divorce papers in hand, I headed back home, my resolve strengthening with every step. The scene that greeted me was predictably frustrating. Martha immediately started in on me the moment I walked through the door. "Where have you been all day? We've been waiting for you to make dinner," she snapped, her voice dripping with disdain. I met her gaze, my patience worn thin. "I'm not your cook, Martha, or your maid. That ends now." Jake, ever the peacemaker, tried to smooth things over, but I could hear the hint of his plan peeking through. "Maybe this is a sign. We should sell the house, start fresh somewhere else," he said too casually. His parents nodded eagerly, clearly liking where this was headed, but I couldn't help it. I laughed. The absurdity of it all, their eager faces, it was too much. "Oh, Jake, I know about your plan, all of it." Silence crashed down like a wave. Jake's face turned ghostly white, and Martha's mouth snapped shut. "What plan?" Jake managed to ask, but his voice was shaky, guilty. With a deep breath, I laid the divorce papers on the table. "This plan, we're done. I want you and your parents out of my house," I said firmly. The outrage was immediate. Martha was the first to explode. "You can't do this. We're family." "Family doesn't plot against each other," I shot back, my voice unwavering. Jake tried to argue, to plead with me, but I was done. "I'm not falling for it, Jake. It's over. I've already spoken to a lawyer." The realization hit him like a brick. There was nothing left for them to manipulate, no emotional tricks to play. Defeated, Jake and his parents reluctantly packed their things, frustration boiling over. But without a word, they left. As the door closed behind them, silence filled the house. For the first time in a long while, it was the sound of freedom. I sat alone in the dining room, their departure still echoing off the walls. It was over. I could finally breathe again, but the weight of what had transpired hung heavy in the air. I wasn't sure what to do with myself. The toxic routine I had been trapped in was gone. After a moment, I reached for my phone and dialed my best friend, Sarah. If anyone could understand, it was her. "Hey, it's me," I said as soon as she answered. "Jennifer, what's wrong? You sound off." Sarah's voice was filled with concern. I laughed, a mix of relief and disbelief. "You won't believe what just happened. Jake and his parents, they're gone. I kicked them out." "What?" Sarah practically shouted. I could hear the surprise in her voice. "Girl, what happened?" So I told her everything. The overheard conversation, the visit to the lawyer, and the final showdown. As I spoke, the reality of my newfound freedom began to sink in. "Wow, Jennifer," Sarah said, stunned. I don't even know what to say. "Are you okay?" I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. "Yeah, I think I am. Better than I've been in a long time." We chatted a bit longer, and her support lifted my spirits even further. After hanging up, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The house felt different now. Mine, surely mine. I could do whatever I wanted with it, fill it with new memories, maybe even redecorate. The next few days were a blur of activity. I started clearing out every reminder of Jake and his parents. With each box I packed away, I felt lighter, more in control of my own destiny. I also threw myself into my online school, pouring every ounce of energy into something that was truly mine. It wasn't just a distraction, it was a lifeline, pulling me from the murky waters of betrayal onto solid ground. My students, my lessons gave me purpose, a reason to look forward each day. One afternoon, as I was preparing for a webinar that had drawn interest from places I'd only dreamed of reaching, my phone rang. Martha's name flashed on the screen. I hadn't seen or thought of her in what felt like a lifetime. Curiosity got the better of me, and I answered, bracing myself. "Jennifer, dear, it's Martha." She sounded different, her voice laced with desperation. "We need your help." I hesitated, memories of their betrayal flashing hot and bright. What happened? Our house, the one we rented out, it's gone, she stammered. Burned down because of some electrical fault and, well, the insurance. She trailed off, the weight of her omission hanging between us. And you didn't pay the insurance on time, so now you're out with nothing. I finished for her, a cold satisfaction creeping into my tone. Yes, exactly, she admitted. We were wondering, hoping really, that maybe we could stay with you. Just for a little while, she pressed, each word more desperate than the last. The audacity of her request left me speechless for a moment. After everything, they still saw me as their safety net, their backup plan. I found my voice steadier and colder than I intended. No, Martha, that's not possible. You're strangers to me now. Later, through mutual acquaintances, I learned about Jake's new reality. He had taken a job far beneath the lifestyle he once clung to, scraping by just to keep a roof over his head. Part of me wanted to take satisfaction in his fall from grace. But a deeper part of me was just tired. Tired of the anger, the resentment. It was time to truly